Greetings everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today we're diving into some crucial global events that have been unfolding recently, events that are rapidly reshaping the geopolitical landscape and impacting all of us in one way or another. There's a lot to unpack, so let's not waste any more time and get into it. The aggressive strategies employed by Russia within Eastern Europe are facing a growing tide of intolerance and rebuke. European nations along the Baltic Sea, as well as those in Scandinavia, have recently demonstrated a united front, making serious preparations to deliver sharp and decisive blows against any Russian actions considered aggressive. Unfortunately, these efforts have yet to effectively halt Moscow's relentless policies and ongoing military actions. Indeed, the policies of Russian President Vladimir Putin seem to have grown more assertive, potentially due to a calculation that they could outlast these European efforts. From the Baltic area up to the Arctic regions and stretching from Eastern Europe toward the Mediterranean Sea, there's been a surge of unwanted and alarming events. It's even conceivable that Putin anticipated his robust relations with the then President Donald Trump would provide him with some sort of shield or advantage. However, Trump's own actions since assuming the highest office of the United States have become a significant obstacle for Putin's ambitions. The remarks and pronouncements emanating from Trump have once more seized global attention, this time with Putin as the explicit target. In the opening 24 hours of his presidency, Trump was quite direct, sending Putin a firm message: enough, withdraw from Ukraine. This decree was published on Trump's official social media account, serving as a public notice. Trump issued a clear warning that Putin must urgently negotiate a cessation of hostilities in Ukraine, or be prepared to face severe consequences. Yet the pivotal question remains: can Trump's course of action compel Russia to abandon its military operations in Ukraine and induce Putin to revise his strategic calculations? Following this forceful outburst, the US President Donald Trump released a formal statement threatening substantial tariffs and various economic sanctions against Russian goods if Vladimir Putin failed to secure an agreement to end the war in Ukraine. Trump issued a firm warning to Russian dictator Vladimir Putin: establish peace immediately, or I will crush your economy. These fresh comments from the US president have sparked heightened scrutiny regarding the nature of his rapport with the president of Russia. Make a deal now and put an end to this preposterous war. Things will only worsen if an agreement isn't reached soon. I will have no other option but to impose elevated taxes, tariffs, and sanctions on every product Russia sells to the US, Trump declared in a post on the Truth Social platform, specifically targeting the Russian president. We have the option of proceeding the easy way, or we can proceed the difficult way, and it's always far more preferable to pursue the easy way, Trump asserted. There are two major factors influencing this rather assertive tone. The first of these is the rising popularity among voters in the United States that stems from Trump's firm stance on the Ukraine issue. The second is a clear signal that the collective tolerance of the Western bloc towards Russia's actions is rapidly dwindling. Furthermore, just as Trump assumed his new office, a phone conversation took place between President Xi Jinping of China and President Putin of Russia, where both leaders confirmed a strengthening of relations. However, this is in stark contrast to Trump's aggressive stance on Russia. Some perceive this move as an attempt by Trump to position himself as an agent of peace, while others view it as a political ploy intended to voice discontent with the drawn-out conflict that began in the year 2022. So what's the significance of this transformation, where Trump, who had once seemed to enjoy positive relations with Putin and was even portrayed by Western media as likely to align further with Russia, is now issuing such a warning? Is this a signal that will undermine Putin's strategies in Moscow? Or is it merely a political gesture? I have no wish to ruin Russia, but if necessary, I will push them to do so to end the war in Ukraine, Trump stated, threatening Putin with measures that would plunge Russia's economy into chaos. According to reports from outlets such as Politico and CNBC, Trump told the Kremlin, "The economy is your lifeblood, and if you don't put an end to this, I will." This is consistent with reports suggesting that Trump has articulated the position that Russia is destroying itself, and you are pushing your country backward by continuing with this war. At this moment, the question arises as to why Trump is now using sanctions so aggressively, given his earlier reputation for maintaining favorable relations with Putin. A A plausible explanation could be that Trump is attempting to create an impression of being assertive, of not capitulating to Russia, as his influence in American domestic politics is renewed. Critics have also been voicing their displeasure with the Biden administration's handling of the Ukraine situation, and this statement from Trump has the capability to communicate a specific message to his voter base, that if I were in office, I would have solved it in a more timely fashion, a message that would appeal to various perspectives. It's being reported that the Kremlin is interpreting this change as a sign that the new administration in the US seeks to intensify its pressure regarding the Ukraine matter. According to the same reports, Putin, during his phone interaction with Xi Jinping, may have stated that US threats of sanctions are nothing new, but the fact that Trump approached the situation with such an upfront and perhaps less tactful style indicated that the pressure was indeed on the rise. This conversation between Russia's President Vladimir Putin and China's President Xi Jinping happened right after Donald Trump assumed office. Trump has been forthright, stating that if he regains office, he will create an atmosphere where Russia feels under threat. Meanwhile, the relationship between Xi Jinping and Putin is being closely examined following Trump's inauguration. Xi spoke to Putin by phone and declared the deepening of ties. Some interpret this call as an intimidation of the US, while others suggest Beijing is working to secure economic and strategic advantages by maintaining close ties with Russia. On the other hand, there are those who are speculating that Xi did not acknowledge Putin with a wave or a similar gesture, indicating a frosty relationship. So, although the Russia-China alliance may not be completely harmonious, the Kremlin is likely to want to broadcast that they cannot be isolated, since China is on their side. But can Trump truly isolate Russia to the point that their economy is significantly weakened? Or is this all just a bluff to gain an advantageous stance in the international arena? Examining the potential substance of Trump's actions related to sanctions, we see it could manifest in additional tariffs on Russian energy products, new asset freezes aimed at Russian oligarchs, and perhaps even efforts to completely stop trade with Russia. Of course, this would carry with it ramifications for the entire world economy. It can be argued that the US and European countries have already implemented sweeping sanctions, so what additional steps can Trump take? The potential answer may involve restricting all access to the US dollar, cutting off Russian-owned banks from the international financial network, and taking strong measures in shipping and logistics. It's plausible that Trump may keep these options in his hand to use as a significant trump card. A source close to the Kremlin reportedly said, Trump states, "Stop the senseless war in Ukraine," but it is ridiculous that he believes that the US can strangle Russia by sanctions. Russia has, for some time, expressed its intention to formulate an approach focused on economic resilience, redirecting its energy to the Asian market and establishing alternatives to the SWIFT system and the dollar. But it is also true that since the conflict in Ukraine started, the Russian economy has been in a serious state of turmoil. The ruble has seen serious fluctuations, foreign investments have disappeared, and the access to advanced technology imports has been cut off. Therefore, while complete isolation may not be attainable, it would be far too optimistic to assume that Trump's sanctions would have no effect. Even more severe sanctions would potentially result in increased instability in global commodity markets, increased energy costs, and disruptions to global supply chains. Also relevant is the question of what incentives Trump might be offering to Putin, either directly or behind the scenes. In a proposed peace deal scenario, Russia's withdrawal from Ukraine, or possibly retaining some part of its territory, and Ukraine not joining NATO, are all being considered as concessions. Trump's message to Putin is, make a deal now, or you'll be hit with heavy taxes and tariffs. This could potentially start a discussion inside Ukraine about whether some territory should be ceded. But for the moment, the administration in Kyiv is holding the position that they will not cede a single inch of land. Another important point of discussion is whether Trump is actually able to go as far as he is threatening. Some experts are pointing out that it is difficult to impose sweeping sanctions without first getting the approval of the US Congress. However, it is worth noting that Trump used some loopholes during his previous term in office to implement tariffs, raise taxes, and even to start a trade war. This brings up the legitimate question, will Trump attempt to bypass Congress to achieve his objectives? The answer could be that if Trump is resolute and acts based on national security reasons, he has considerable latitude to maneuver. This would sound alarm bells in the Russian economy. Putin has not yet responded directly to these comments from Trump. A spokesperson for the Kremlin said that they will be closely observing the strategies of the new U.S. administration, adding that Russia has dealt with sanctions before and is not intimidated by them. Russian media outlets are reporting that Trump's approach may be different from that of the Biden administration, even if he is facing internal opposition at home. They also suggest it is possible that this is simply a bargaining strategy, since the idea that Putin loves Trump has been circulating since the presidential elections in the year 2016. At this point, the question of whether Trump has turned his back on Putin is a real point of discussion. Perhaps the best way to summarize the current situation is this: Trump is not satisfied with the drawn-out conflict in Ukraine. His public statement is that he has the ability to end it in a single day. In this context, he has stated that if Putin doesn't cease the war, then he will bury Russia with unthinkable sanctions. Simultaneously, he's also sending a message to voters in the US stating, "I am the strong leader that will bring peace." Putin, on the other hand, is planning to meet with Xi Jinping to demonstrate that Russia is not isolated and that China is by their side. But Xi's position is not completely clear, given the allegations that he refused to acknowledge Putin. This suggests that Beijing might not be fully embracing Russia. It remains unclear whether these events will ultimately benefit or hurt Ukraine. The crucial question is how Ukraine is reacting to these statements. Most likely, the Kyiv administration will simply keep repeating the message that pressure on Russia is beneficial, but that no one should expect them to cede any territory. There are concerns within Ukraine that Trump could make some offers to Russia, giving up some territory to achieve a deal. The Zelensky administration is stating that they intend to solve the situation diplomatically, but also that the territorial integrity of Ukraine is a firm red line. The opposition within Russia, however, argues that this war must end, and that Trump's threats of sanctions could compel the Kremlin to come to the negotiation table. It's also possible that internal pressure could restrict Putin's options. At the same time, the current Putin regime may make use of external enemy rhetoric to strengthen the public and consolidate it behind them. In other words, Trump's words could actually be turned into propaganda by the Kremlin to portray the West as being poised to attack them once again. Ultimately, Trump has threatened Putin with sanctions if he does not bring an end to the war in Ukraine. Even if this seems surprising, it is completely aligned with Trump's publicly stated America First philosophy and the concept that it is acceptable to impose tariffs on anyone if needed. This time, Russia is being targeted, suggesting that patience regarding the conflict in Ukraine is running low. It also indicates that Trump will use a different diplomatic approach in the global arena. For Putin, this means a new challenge, especially since Europe and the Biden administration are already using the power of sanctions, and now Trump is also doing so, even more aggressively. Trump is threatening to economically destroy Russia, stating that they must sit at the negotiating table or I will take care of it. While it remains to be seen whether this will turn into something more than just words, the harsh rhetoric used in international politics has the power to change the delicate balance. The degree to which Russia has shifted its focus towards China and the honesty of the recent phone call between President Xi and President Putin will all contribute to this complex situation. It goes without saying that the progress of the military actions in Ukraine will also play a decisive role. For the time being, it appears that with Trump's warning, the political and economic pressure on the Kremlin is likely to increase. Putin may decide to adjust his strategy, claiming that Trump's sanctions are already on the horizon, or may choose to escalate the conflict, calculating that if they can win the war fast enough, then Trump's threats won't matter. The only thing that is clear is that the conflict in Ukraine is not going to be resolved easily. To summarize, Trump warning Putin with "end the war or face sanctions" is not just a headline. It is also part of a wider dynamic involving domestic political struggles in the US, Russia's international standing, China's role, and the ultimate destiny of Ukraine. This action could be interpreted as a clear message to Russia that sanctions will be amplified exponentially, pushing the Kremlin into a corner. Only time will reveal what the true consequences will be. Who knows? Maybe in the end, Putin will decide to ignore Trump's offer to make a deal and will continue the war. Perhaps there are some who are hoping that this political change in the US will result in a fresh compromise with Russia. However, Trump's aggressive position begs the question of whether he is not also attempting to provoke it. It seems that the Ukrainian issue cannot be avoided in the Trump-Putin dynamic. In the coming weeks, it will be crucial to see how Russia will respond to this threat, how these events will affect the coordination between Xi Jinping and Putin, and also what will be the direction that the war in Ukraine will take. All of these questions will continue to be thoroughly discussed in the global arena. What is clear is that Trump has played the "your game is over, withdraw, or I will crush your economy" card with Putin, which limits the Kremlin's maneuvering room and also reopens the discussion of a solution to the conflict in Ukraine for Russia. With Trump's aggressive declarations, it is likely that the world has once again entered a period of rapid change. However, it would be simplistic to assume that Putin will immediately give up just because Trump has issued these statements. There are many different and complex factors involved, including Moscow's withdrawal from the war, China's support, the political situation inside Russia, and also the determination of Ukraine. Ultimately, Trump's warning to Putin, "Stop the war or you will face sanctions," is a development that is going to have ripples throughout the international arena. While Russia is trying to determine if this is just a bluff or not, Europe is evaluating what the impact on energy and security will be. Ukraine is also on high alert, concerned that they may be offered up as a part of a deal. So, what do you believe? Will Trump force Putin into a corner, or will Putin dismiss these threats and proceed? Will the economies of Europe suffer if they also impose severe sanctions? Or is now the right time to say stop to Russia? Will Ukraine benefit from these events? Or are they destined to be a victim of negotiations between powerful countries? Remember to subscribe to our channel and hit the like button. It's extremely important for the growth of our channel. Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Don't forget to watch till the end, as we are going to make some important conclusions.